good afternoon, everybody. It looks like we've got a large crowd here this afternoon. I appreciate everybody for signing up and attending live today. This is exciting. My name is Tammy Kabell, and I'm with Career Resume Consulting, and I'm here along today with Will Gladhart from Will Gladhart Consulting. Hi, Will.
Hello, Tammy.
Hello. And I want to welcome everybody to today's installment of my Six-Figure Pro series of job search webinars. And today we're going to be sharing with you the 10 reasons why employers aren't calling you. This is something I actually took from an article that I wrote, spent quite a bit of time looking over why people aren't getting the responses that they're getting. And a lot of it came from an event that Will and I did just about a week and a half ago at Salon Mission and Day Spa in, is that Kansas City, Missouri? Is it still technically Kansas City?
No, it's actually in Mission, Kansas.
Is it in Mission? Okay. That's why it would be called Salon Mission, I guess. So today we're going to go over identifying the missteps or the bottlenecks in your job search process that are keeping you from getting important phone calls from an employer or a recruiter or really any kind of decision maker. And this could be your resume, it could be your online presence, or really any part of the communication employers are seeing about you that is keeping you from getting the responses that you need in order to move forward in the hiring process. So I do want to welcome everybody who signed up to this call. We had over 50 people this time sign up specifically for this call since last call, and so I really thank all the new people for joining us as well as some of the returning people, either whether you're listening live or listening later. And I know that in addition to those 50, we had about 45 people sign up from that event that we attended last Monday. So welcome, all of you, very much. We'll be talking about that event a little later in the hour because we're going to talk about some of the mistakes that we saw people making in their resumes, because literally between Will and I, we looked at probably 75 or more resumes over a 9-hour period. So it was if you think about speed dating, it was speed dating for resume assessments. And so we got a real big wake-up call, or at least I know Will did, because Will doesn't usually see as many resumes as I do. And you can always hear this webinar and past webinars by visiting my website, and that's careerresumeconsulting.com. Once we have this one up here, which, Will, that usually takes less than 3 or 4 days to get that up. Is that right?
Yeah, usually about a day or two. It's up on the website.
Okay. Right now there's over about 19 hours of instruction on how to find a six-figure job in a matter of weeks and not in months, and also how to position yourself in order to be paid what you're worth. So at Career Resume Consulting, what we do is executive branding for job searching. We do resume writing, full-service executive career services. And I like to say that we help our clients land six-figure jobs in weeks and not months, basically because it's true. Usually 10 weeks or less is how long it takes a large majority of our clients to find positions. So today I'd like to introduce the gentleman behind the online magic that happens at CRC, and that's Will. Will is he's the one that develops the LinkedIn profiles, the online resumes, and all of the job board profiles for our executive search clients. He really is a master at what he does. Some of the things that he does, borderline, it's magical, because I don't know how you do some search engine optimization for individuals, but it's amazing what kind of responses that they get. So Will's going to be talking with us today to share his insights on what you need in an online profile, as well as each of the 10 reasons why people aren't calling you. Right, Will?
Yes, that's correct, Tammy.
Okay. And then you're also the owner of Will Gladhart Consulting, which is a digital marketing consulting company, and that can be found at willgladhart.com, and that's WILLGLADHART.com. I won't get into a long, drawn-out introduction of myself. If you want to know my bio, you're welcome to take a look at careerresumeconsulting.com. I do have an extensive bio and a little section called Tammy's Story that gives you my background. But I know what you really want to hear today are those 10 reasons why people aren't calling you. So let's get ready to take notes. And you'll be able to listen to this later. Since you've signed up for it, I'll send you a link. But you're going to absorb it better if you're listening live and taking notes as you go. Be thinking of questions that you want to ask me or ask Will, because here's your chance at the end of the call. If you're on the call live, and it looks like we've got a lot of people on the phone live, then what you'll do at the end of the call is press *2 if you have a question. And then if you have a question while you're listening in, and we've got even more people listening in on the online system. So if you're looking at an online page and listening to this webinar, what you do is type in your question in the lower left-hand box. And you can press *2 if you're on the phone, or type in that question on the lower left-hand corner of the screen anytime during this call, and then we'll answer those toward the end of the call. All right? So I'd like to start with covering a baseball analogy. I give this baseball example quite a bit, and that is that you have to consider running bases when you're looking for a job. You really have to consider it like a baseball game, where if you're just doing some activity but it's not in an organized fashion, all you're doing, it ends up looking like a warm-up to a game. You're maybe tossing some resumes out there, you're fielding a few things, but you're not really doing it in an organized fashion. What we're looking at today is that there's a breakdown somewhere in running the bases. So when you think about the first base as being getting someone's attention, and that attention might be, like I said, any decision maker, a recruiter, a hiring manager, which would be my preference, or HR, you've got to get their attention first and get that first phone call, and then you have to sell yourself from that phone call into the face-to-face conversation, which is second base. Getting an offer from that face-to-face conversation gets you on third base, but you don't actually run to home and get a home run until you've negotiated a package that is for you, something that is desirable for you, and then when your butt is in that seat, that's when you've actually reached home plate. So think about, you have to run all of the bases. You can't skip any of those steps when you're looking for a job. And if you're not getting the attention of employers, there's a breakdown somewhere in running those bases. So this call really is for someone who isn't getting initial responses. So that first part of the process is broken somehow. For those of you who are getting phone calls but not getting jobs, the call isn't designed necessarily to talk about breakdowns or bottlenecks in the rest of the process. However, I think it's still worth your time to attend, because you still may hear yourself in some of the examples that we give. So let's get started with my top 10 list of reasons why you aren't getting phone calls. I've worked nearly a decade of experience in the career business. I've got 18 years of hiring manager experience, and I've been able to pick out good candidates from bad candidates. I've owned Career Resume Consulting for 4 years, and what I found is that quite a number of really great candidates are out in the job market when I first discovered them. They're just not being noticed by employers or recruiters. They're rock stars already, but they're not conveying that to the decision makers. So the first thing that I'm charged with as the owner of an executive career firm is to get my clients noticed. And until that's accomplished, really the greatest of interviewing skills or negotiating skills are pretty useless, because they're not getting people's attention. So here are the top 10 reasons why I've seen great candidates, real rock stars, go entirely unnoticed by target employers. Like I said in my description of this, if you read the description of this call, if you recognize yourself in one or a lot of these different things, work immediately to correct them, and then you'll find that if you make major changes to any one of these that we're going to be talking about, it will have a majorly positive impact on your search results. So, Will, let's start with the number one reason why people aren't getting a phone call from a decision maker.
All right. Well, I hate to say it, but your resume is awful. He's like, thanks, Tammy, make me be the bad guy.
Yeah, I did make you the bad guy. Your resume, the resumes that come across my desk, a lot of times they barely describe the true scope of the responsibilities of the person, and they hardly ever contain all of the achievements or really any of the achievements that somebody's had. Instead, what I find is that the chronological list of job descriptors filled a lot of times with the jargon of the industry that they're leaving behind. And what it does is force the employer to connect the dots between what you've done in the past and what you can do for them. These days, no employer, no recruiter, no HR person, nobody has the time to connect those dots. So if they don't see a direct correlation between what you've done and what they need, then they quickly toss your resume aside. I've also seen grammatical errors. I mean, that is absolutely unacceptable, and it is a complete resume killer. I've been told by more than one HR person, if I see one grammatical error, I don't even look at it. I'm not even considering it. And Will, what did you see when we were at the Salon Mission event? Some recurring themes, maybe.
Well, I think a recurring theme, Tammy, was as you stated, a lot of industry words that weren't necessarily relevant to what someone's accomplishments were. A great example might be the word churn, which can be used in telecom or, specifically when dealing with customers. But, it really means like, a customer leaving or attrition or, falling out of the actual, engagement with the business. So, why wouldn't you just say, I eliminated 50% of consumers, leaving our business by implementing this plan. A lot of the times
customer attrition. Customer attrition rather than decreased churn rate. Yeah.
Right.
That's
and
one that we see.
Again, that kind of leads to the overarching theme, Tammy, that it was what I found in just seeing a lot of different resumes in a pretty concise amount of time was that the resumes themselves, I really wasn't able to understand what someone's achievements were or their accomplishments were until I asked them to tell me the story about what it is that they did, and then all of a sudden, within one sentence, two sentences, we were able to condense down that this was a very powerful achievement, but it took me asking the story and actually asking what those 3 to 4, either sentences, paragraph, whatever it was, meant, or those bullet points meant, for me to be able to go, oh, now I understand how you can help me. And, of course, that took having the conversation, someone sitting down with me and discussing what that achievement was. And, as a hiring manager, someone looking for someone to fix my pain points in my business, I would want to see those right away and scan through and discover those immediately. So I think a lot of it was that I was just really having to dive so far in depth into someone's resume document that I couldn't understand or couldn't figure out what the story was immediately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and that's actually something that I do when I work with clients, and that you do too when we work with clients to pull out those stories. And it's something that you can do if you're listening to this. If you have a story that seems, if you give it to a stranger or maybe a friend that is out of your industry and you say, hey, do you understand what this means? If they don't understand it, then tell them the story and see if they can pick it out. But it takes some work. It takes some work in looking at everything that you've done and really talking about it in plain speak. I think people are so used to writing a resume like it's an academic paper. They feel very intimidated about it, and they end up using a lot of resume speak, which at the end of the day doesn't really mean a whole lot. It doesn't convey what their genius has been, or what they're capable of doing. So I think you're right, talking in plain speak and also getting it down to one sentence. I think that's really important too. Because if you take one story and bring it to 3 to 5 sentences in a resume, that's too long.
Absolutely. Well, and also, the consistent length of resumes was 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. And, me personally as a, either looking for a solution provider or wanting to quickly find out about someone's information, I'm as a business owner, I'm simply not going to go through 5 pages of a document just to figure out if this person's a fit for me. I want to know right up front, and also, what it is that they are an expert at. And that was probably one of the really big ones that we saw consistently, I think, throughout the day, Tammy, that they were just it was a very long, arduous document that just it was basically everything that you had ever done, and it was lots of descriptors, but not numbers necessarily paired with those descriptors that were very important or impactful and hard-hitting. So. Yeah,
and it doesn't get to the point of what you can do for an employer, and you always have to keep that employer in mind. So the number 2 resume, or the number 2 reason that I see, and this is connected with the number 1 because it's also it's about your resume, is that your resume says, me too. And what I mean by that is that the resume looks like everybody else's, and specifically, as a hiring manager, I've seen too many times where every candidate has changed his or her resume to match the job posting description almost exactly. So what I was left with was a very tall stack of resumes that looked exactly alike. Now, you may think that you're adding keywords in order to get past the automated bots, the databases that they use. You may be getting past those, but if your resume looks like everybody else's and it looks exactly like the job description, who's going to give you a call? You're not setting yourself apart. And also, when you do that, you become a commodity. In other words, you're just like everybody else. And so any phone call that you get will have more to do with luck than strategic design, if you will. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I think, we also saw, I guess some examples of the Me Too resume where several individuals had, 3 to 10 different iterations of their resume document. And my question to them was basically, how are you keeping these straight for different job positions you're applying for? And the comment consistently back was, well, we've been able to put them in files, but there have been instances where we've sent the wrong resume to the wrong job. And, I mean, I would think that would opt you out of being even considered just right off the bat. So, you've kind of sat and wasted time submitting that resume document, and it's not even the right document that's supposed to be going to that potential employer. So, again, that kind of goes back to keeping the resume brief as well as, a one-page document that is consistent and delivered to everyone, but also is a very unique-looking document as well. So.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't listened to my webinars in the past, I'm a real big fan of one-page functional resumes simply because I've been told by a lot of recruiters, I've been told by a lot of decision makers, hiring managers, if it's not important enough to put on the front page, I really don't have time to read it. I mean, when you think about recruiters still getting up to 150 resumes on average per day, you've really got to set yourself apart. So having a 30-second commercial in a one-page resume really helps you do that, and it doesn't make you a Me Too resume. If you look at your resume, let's say, for instance, you're looking for a director of sales position. Does your director of sales resume look like everybody else's that's going for the same position? Does it have numbers of your sales, and does it have some management numbers on there, but really nothing that sets you apart? What is your differentiation? What is your unique selling proposition? And unique selling proposition in a resume is your unique combination of your skills and your experience, your achievements, your education. All of those are a combination that nobody else has. So what is it in that combination that makes you uniquely qualified for the position that you're applying for?